The Galactic Council chamber was built to intimidate. It always had been. The ceiling rose so high it disappeared into darkness, layered with drifting holograms of conquered stars. The floor was polished obsidian, reflecting every movement like a mirror meant to remind visitors how small they were. Along the curved walls sat the council members' giant forms, insectoid shapes, glowing-eyed entities, and ancient beings whose age was measured in millennia. At the center of it all stood a single human. No armor, no visible weapon, no sign of fear. Ambassador Elias Monroe stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his expression calm, almost bored. His simple dark suit looked painfully plain compared to the ceremonial. Exoskeletons and floating thrones around him. A low, echoing voice filled the chamber. Humanity stands accused. The speaker was High Arbiter Zalith, a towering figure of crystal and smoke, its voice layered with artificial gravity. Every word pressed down on the air itself. You have expanded beyond assigned sectors. You have disrupted trade routes. You have interfered in conflicts not your own. A pause followed, in violation of galactic accord. The council murmured. Some hissed, some clicked, others pulsed with shifting light. This was the moment they enjoyed most, the moment a lesser species realized it had gone too far. Zalith continued, tradition allows the accused one. Chance, speak, apologize, submit to corrective oversight. Every eye turned to the human. This was the part where species begged. Monroe did not speak. Seconds passed. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. A council member leaned forward, a massive avian creature draped in gold. Did you not understand the arbiter? It screeched. You may address us. Still, the human said nothing. Some of the council exchanged amused signals. Zalith's tone shifted slightly. Is this defiance or confusion? Monroe finally moved. He raised his head and looked directly at the arbiter. Not up in awe, not down in shame, just level. I heard you, Monroe said calmly. The chamber quieted instantly. And? Zalith pressed. And we decline, Monroe replied. The word echoed louder than any shout. A ripple of shock moved through the council. Decline? The avian counselor snapped. You decline mercy? Monroe's voice remained steady. We decline the premise? Zalith's glow darkened. Explain. You assume we came here to beg, Monroe said. We didn't. A low rumble of laughter spread among several council members. You stand alone, hissed a reptilian delegate. Your fleets are insignificant. Your colonies depend on our roots, Monroe nodded slightly. That used to be true. The arbiter raised one massive limb, silencing the room. Human, Zalith said slowly. Your species is young. You mistake tolerance for weakness, Monroe smiled faintly. Not proudly, not arrogantly, just knowingly, no, he said. We learned that lesson early. The council shifted again, this time uneasily. Zalith leaned forward. Then hear the consequences. Refusal will result in sanctions, isolation, and, if necessary, enforcement. Monroe exhaled quietly, as if disappointed. I was hoping you'd say that. Several council members recoiled. What does that mean? Demanded a glowing entity. Monroe turned slightly, gesturing to the empty space beside him. You see emptiness, he said. We see preparation. The arbiter's voice hardened. You overestimate yourselves. Possibly, Monroe replied. But you underestimated silence. The chamber lights flickered for a fraction of a second, so brief most didn't notice, but a few did. Zalith straightened. This session is suspended. Humanity will be given one cycle to reconsider. Monroe gave a small nod. That won't be necessary. As guards moved forward, Monroe spoke one last time. We didn't refuse because we are angry, he said. We refused because we already moved on. The chamber doors closed behind him. And for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council felt something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. The Galactic Council did not panic. That was their first mistake. After the human ambassador left, the chamber filled with overlapping signals, low-frequency clicks, flashes of color, and encrypted thought streams shared between older species. To an outside observer, it might have looked calm. It was not. Empty confidence, scoffed the avian counselor. They posture because they fear us. Zalith remained silent, crystalline form slowly rotating as data streams poured through its consciousness. The humans have no formal A's, said a gelatinous delegate. No treaties recognized by this council. Then isolate them, growled the reptilian warlord. Cut their roots. Starve their expansion. The suggestion was met with approval. Sanctions were efficient, clean, civilized. Within minutes, the council issued the directive. Human trade lanes were closed. Galactic ports denied docking. Communication relays restricted. A perfect punishment, or so they believed. On a quiet station orbiting a blue-white star, Ambassador Monroe watched notifications scroll across a holographic screen. He did not react. Around him, human analysts monitored data with practiced calm. They've sealed the fourth corridor, one officer reported. Expected, Monroe replied. Another voice joined in. Council channels are celebrating. They think this will break us. Monroe allowed himself a small smile. Then let them celebrate, he said. We're right on schedule. 3 cycles passed. Then 5. Then 10. The council waited for desperation. It never came. Human ships did not turn back. Human colonies did not go dark. Human communications did not flood the council with pleas. Instead, something strange began to happen. Independent traders, species not aligned with the council, started rerouting their traffic, not away from human space, toward it. A murmur spread. Why are unregistered vessels ignoring sanctions? Demanded one counselor. Zalith examined the data. Because they are not using our lanes, the arbiter said slowly. The chamber stilled. That is impossible, the avian delegate snapped. All stable routes are charted and controlled. Were, Zalith corrected. Another report appeared. Then another. Then dozens. Human ships were traveling through regions labeled non-viable. Unstable gravity wells. High radiation corridors. Collapsed hyperspace folds. Routes the council had abandoned centuries ago. They're using suicide paths, scoffed the reptilian warlord. They won't last, but the reports kept coming. No losses. No distress signals. The humans were not surviving the routes. They had mastered them. How? Whispered a minor delegate. Zalith did not answer, because Zalith was beginning to understand. The council escalated. A patrol fleet was dispatched ostensibly for inspection. In truth, it was a show of force. When the fleet arrived at the edge of human-controlled space, it found something unexpected. They were not alone. Dozens of ships floated nearby. Not human, unaligned species, fringe civilizations, former vassals of the Council. They did not block the patrol. They simply watched. The patrol commander opened a channel. "This sector is under Council sanction," he declared. "Disperse." A response came not in threat, but in calm. "We acknowledge," said the voice. "We choose not to comply." The patrol hesitated. Behind the neutral ships, human vessels drifted silently, their configurations unfamiliar, modular, adaptable, designed for something other than show. The patrol withdrew. The incident was reported and quietly buried. Back in the council chamber, irritation replaced confidence. "They are turning others against us," snarled the avian delegate. "No," Zalith said. "They are offering an alternative." The arbiter expanded a projection. It showed networks, new ones, trade webs forming outside council control, shared technology hubs, mutual defense agreements, none filed, none registered. "Informal cooperation," muttered a counselor with disgust. "Primitive." "Effective," Zalith replied. The reptilian warlord slammed a claw against his throne. "Then we force compliance. Send an enforcement fleet." Silence followed. Sending a fleet meant open aggression. Open aggression required certainty. Zalith studied the human data again. Something was missing. No mass mobilization. No war speeches. No threats. Only readiness. "They are not preparing for war," Zalith said slowly. "Then what are they doing?" asked a delegate. Zalith's voice lowered. "They already prepared. Long ago." Another cycle passed. A council relay station went dark. No explosion. No attack. It simply shut down. Then another. Then a third. Systems failed, not violently, but gracefully, as if told to sleep. Engineers found no breach. Only a message embedded deep in the code. A human signature. "This is not an act of war," the message read. "This is a demonstration." Panic rippled through the chamber. "They're inside our infrastructure," cried a delegate. Zalith finally understood the silence, the refusal to beg, the calm. Humans had not challenged the Council's fleets. They had bypassed them. "You misjudged them," Asalith said to the chamber. "We all did," the avian delegate hissed. "They are still a single species." Zalith turned. "They are a signal." The chamber fell quiet. "For centuries," the arbiter continued, "we ruled by permission. They have shown the galaxy how to live without it." At that moment, a priority alert appeared. Human Ambassador Elias Monroe requested a second audience. The council stared at the projection. This time Monroe was smiling. And for the first time since humanity joined the stars, the Galactic Council realized something terrifying. The humans had never been on trial. They had been waiting. The Galactic Council chamber was full again, but it no longer felt dominant. The towering thrones remained. The ancient symbols still glowed, yet something fundamental had shifted. The room felt smaller, quieter, like a predator, realizing the prey had been watching back the entire time. Ambassador Elias Monroe stood at the center once more, unrestrained, unescorted, invited. Zalith addressed him without ceremony. "Human," the arbiter said, "you requested this session." Monroe nodded. "Yes, because the demonstration is complete. A low murmur spread through the chamber. The avian delegate leaned forward. You sabotage our systems and call it a demonstration? Monroe met its gaze. We turned them off. We can turn them back on. Silence fell instantly. That restraint, Monroe continued, was intentional. The reptilian warlord growled. You expect gratitude? No, Monroe replied. Understanding. Zalith raised a limb, signaling the others to remain silent. Speak, the Arbiter said. Monroe took a breath. When humanity first reached the stars, he began, we assumed survival meant approval, treaties, permissions, your laws. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. But before we found you, Monroe said, we found something else. The chamber lights dimmed as a projection filled the air. Ancient star maps. Collapsed civilizations. Council insignias stamped on worlds now dead. You didn't unite the galaxy, Monroe said softly. You froze it, the avian delegate hissed. Those worlds failed. Some did, Monroe agreed. Others were prevented from trying. The projection shifted. Human colonies appeared not clustered, but scattered, connected by thin, elegant lines through regions marked unusable. You controlled stability, Monroe said. So we learned to live in instability. Zalith's voice lowered. You exploited dangerous space. We adapted to it, Monroe corrected. There's a difference. A pause. Why? Demanded the counselor. Why challenge us now? Monroe looked around the chamber. Because you called us here to beg, he said. And we realize something. The projection vanished. We didn't come to join your order, Monroe said calmly. We came to see if it was worth respecting. The word struck harder than any threat. The reptilian warlord rose. You are a single species. Monroe nodded. So were we on our homeworld. A few delegates exchanged uneasy signals. Power isn't numbers, Monroe continued. It's resilience, redundancy, trust without permission. Zalith studied the human carefully. What do you want? The Arbiter asked. Monroe smiled, not triumphantly, but kindly. Nothing from you, he said. The chamber erupted. Then why are you here? Shouted the avian delegate. Monroe's voice remained calm. Because the galaxy is watching, he said, and silence can be misunderstood. He activated one final projection. It showed dozens of species, small, forgotten, independent. They are choosing, Monroe said. Not sides. Not rebellion. Choice, Zalith whispered. You can remain the council, Monroe said, or you can become irrelevant. A long pause followed. Zalith finally spoke. What assurance do we have that humanity will not dominate as we did? Monroe didn't answer immediately. Instead, he gestured to himself. We stood alone in this chamber, he said. Unarmed, unafraid. The implication was clear. We don't rule by fear, Monroe said, because fear eventually fails. The Arbiter considered this. Then slowly Zalith lowered its towering form. Not in submission, in acknowledgement. The sanctions will be lifted, Zalith declared. Gasps echoed. The Council will recognize non-registry cooperation zones, the Arbiter continued. Effective immediately. Monroe inclined his head. That will be sufficient. As he turned to leave, Zalith asked one final question. Human, the Arbiter said, if you never intended to beg, why come at all? Monroe paused at the doorway. Because power doesn't need permission, he said. But peace needs witnesses. The doors closed behind him. The Galactic Council remained silent. For the first time in its long history, it had not ruled the future. It had been allowed to remain part of it. And across the stars, a message spread not through threats, not through conquest, but through quiet certainty. Humanity did not ask to belong. They built something better and invited others to join.